So Yvonne, this time last month, you dived into some government trends and data to analyze what could happen in the October 2022 Visa Bulletin. Now, last month was a big shakeup for the Visa Bulletin, but your analysis was pretty spot on. Of course, the October 2022 Visa Bulletin marked the start of the new government fiscal year. What's your broad analysis of the October 2022 Visa Bulletin?
So as expected, USCIS did choose a dates of filing chart. And what we saw on the October Visa Bulletin is the EB1 category for all countries, including the backlog countries, China and India, remained current. We also saw for EB2 and EB3 for all other countries, as well as Mexico and the Philippines, that remained current for the October Bulletin. What we also saw was EB2 and EB3 China advanced by a couple of months, which we had also anticipated. We also saw EB3 India advance by a couple of months. Of course, what was disappointing for everybody to hear, but not necessarily unanticipated, was that EB2 India retrogressed. However, this is still the start of a new fiscal year. We still have a whole 11 months to go. The other factor that we need to consider is USCIS, probably at this point, and maybe over the next couple of months, they're trying to determine how many visas are they going to need to issue for the all other countries. USCIS did confirm that what they do with the all other countries excess visas, it does trickle over into the backlog countries, starting with the oldest priority dates. So typically, in these kind of situations, India will probably stand to benefit the most, followed by China. So let's just fast forward a little bit. So I would anticipate a couple of months, USCIS is trying to get a feel for how many visas will need to be issued for the all other countries. And then from there, perhaps, I don't think we should rule out the possibility of EB2 India advancing to the point where they were at back in October 2020.
So on the EB2 India retrogression, in fiscal year 2022, we know, according to USCIS, that approximately 60,000 EB2 India green card applications were approved out of the 280,000 total employment-based green card applications that were approved. So with this unprecedented number of approvals in mind, why do you believe that there was a retrogression for EB2 India in the October bulletin?
Right. So what had happened is that back in October 2020, many EB2 India applicants or applicants who could have filed under the EB2 category purposely downgraded their green card application to that of the EB3. So fast forward as the Visa Bulletin movement, what we saw was EB2 India was advancing at a faster rate than EB3 India. So what USCIS did at the beginning of this year, it basically strongly encouraged applicants who were in the EB3 India category and who could qualify for a so-called upgrade to that of the EB2 category. They went ahead and actually encouraged folks who could upgrade to interfile and upgrade their green card application. So what USCIS saw was a massive influx of, all of a sudden, it's EB2 India applicants, and it created a much greater demand in the EB2 India category. And therefore, in order for USCIS to kind of catch up, they had to pull back and retrogress the EB2 India applicants.
Right. So following up on that, how did the government approve 60,000 EB2 India green card applications, given that there's a 7% per country cap each year?
So what we learned from the statement that was released by USCIS in early September is that The all other countries or the rest of the world demand typically exceeds the I'm sorry, the demand does not exceed the supply. So with the excess, it then gets reallocated to the backlog countries, but they start from EB1, then EB2, and then finally EB3. Now, of course, we know that throughout the course of the year, EB1 for backlog countries have remained current. So the next level is that they will look at EB2. At the EB2 level, they will look at one, whether the country is backlogged, and two, they will start with the oldest priority dates. Therefore, so what we saw over this past fiscal year is that EB2 India stood to benefit the most.
Right, and that makes sense given that there were an unprecedented 280,000 available green cards from the spillover from unused family-based green cards last year. And we also saw, or we can estimate from the public data released by USCIS, that approximately 162,000 employment-based green card applications were approved for the rest of the world category. With that in mind, do you think there will be a pent-up demand or a excess of rest of world green card applications going into next year?
I do believe that at some point in this fiscal year, there will be again an excess of the rest of the world demand. And that is the point in time where once USCIS or the government determines that number, we will start to see the EB2 India priority dates advance.
So that segues into my final question then, which is what can folks expect to happen in the November 2022 Visa Bulletin that should be released in the next week or so here?
Yeah, I think given that this is still the beginning of the new fiscal year, we could probably expect to see things remain about the same. As we've seen with this current administration, they are planners, and I don't think they're going to rush into a huge advancement for any particular country. I think they're going to wait and see how many applications they get from the rest of the world demand. But I think this coming month, the month of November, may be a little bit too soon to see some drastic movement.